Good morning. Hold on. Nope. There we go. How's everyone doing? Happy Hacktovember, everybody. Happy Hacktovember to you, too. Me, too. I have 2 front row tickets to the Girk show. Yeah, you do, Squamsk. Mellifluous? Really? Thank you. Crash packs. Ugh. I mean, we'll see. Party hard this weekend? No. No, I didn't. I spent a lot of time writing notes about features for the data service. I don't know how hot New York is. I see everyone like bitching about it online, but I haven't been outside my apartment in 3 days. Inside my apartment, 67. Make sure that's working. All right. Warm but not hot. Yeah, what's the temperature outside right now? It's like 88. It's pretty fucking hot. Might get some thunderstorms today. There was some thunder and stuff last night. I got a tornado warning on my phone. This makes no sense. Syphilis? I hope not. How fucked am I with my Nvidia bull certificate? Do you want to be more specific? Jersey Shore, my AC is set to 69. Nice, but it keeps going up inside. Get a dehumidifier so you don't blow up your air conditioner. That's what you get for vacationing in a swamp, pickled hole. Hawk Tua, sugar tits. Thanks, Glass Kegel. You guys, you guys are really latching onto this one, huh? Houston Wade said DFE has found and is exploiting an infinite money glitch. But he also thinks Saudi's currency is dinars. I don't know what to make of these revelations. Jesus Christ. I live here, bro. Me and the swamp are tight. All right, Shrek. Just like an onion. Do you have any idea why everybody's losing their minds over Haktua? Yes, I do. It's a social phenomenon where men have realized that there are in fact women, not just on the internet but on the streets, um, that are willing to they're willing to spit on a dick and get it lubed up and get the job done. And I think that revelation is leading to horniness. You'd be surprised, Jen. The post-nut clarity after this internet fad is going to be impressive. But there's probably a large portion of the population that's just stayed inside since COVID. If she don't talk to her, I don't talk to her. Ha ha. Girls like wieners. Some do. Yeah. There's a whole generation waking up to what we knew in the early 2000s, which is there is an outside and there's sluts out there, and that's awesome. Hello, Ben Carson here. Happy Sunday. Thanks, Rims and Tims. I will say, since you sent me the picture of you wearing boat shoes on your weekend in Long Island, I'm suddenly a whole lot less worried about meeting you in dark alleyways. What happens if EPAM goes above 210? Oh, I make a bunch of money. Yep. Wait, Ben Carson had a mustachioed girlfriend? I don't know. I'm talking from a Greek's perspective. There's like 2,000 options on the entire chain. What's your timeline for EPAM 210? Well, most of my 200s and 210s expire in July, so I don't have a lot of time. Um, I have some like September 250s, and then I have stock. All right, Greg, get into it. When Nvidia 135 next week? Well, now I'm gonna do Nvidia last. But we could start with everyone's favorite GameStop, which had a disappointing end of the week despite being well set up for a move higher. Um, we're not. free and clear of the settlement period yet, and Friday's price action did generate quite a bit of negative arbitrage. However, we did slip below critical support at $25, which significantly weakens not only the upside potential, um, but increases the downside potential under 20. I don't think there were any big. I don't think there were any big changes in the Greeks. Yeah, Gamma Max is sitting pretty steady at 29.50. Delta neutral and gamma neutral are at 20 and 19, well, 1930 and 2080 respectively. Total delta on the dealer side has now fallen to 670 million, and gamma has fallen to positive 200 and 2.9 million. So positive gamma's been falling off. A little bit of a drop in the GNGN. So possibly with some of the short calls falling off Friday, we'll have some upward pressure going into the first part of this week. But we are starting from a very, very weak point on the chain. I don't really know. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's like a little bit of a ramp out to like 28. I don't think it's going to get much higher than that. But on a break of 25, we could test as high as 28. Although 27's a little bit more likely. And we're right now, any further loss is probably going to see us fall under $20, or at least to the test at $20. So we really don't have any more room for downside. There's a tiny bit of support at 22, and a shitload of puts at 20. And right now, those short puts that were kind of hiding behind the call wall at 25 are getting pressured. Some of them started to squeeze out on Friday, which is why one of the reasons we went down so hard. This doesn't look great. Not a very substantial amount of Vega risk. There's long puts as low as like $10. Vana's going to continue to pick up on the downside move with a bunch of these puts being like between now and July OPEX, and Charm's still very negative, although that doesn't matter so much at the beginning of the week. So yeah, this doesn't look great. I mean, obviously, there's still the window for covering, and there is this negligible amount of negative arbitrage that needs to be resolved, and that buy pressure could get us another bounce, right? Kind of like this kind of scenario. Although it may not. The sell pressure could easily outweigh the resolution of the arbitrage, especially if we continue to move down. So not in a great spot technically, and definitely not in a great spot relative to its options chain. Let me see how IV's been doing. Yeah, IV's still falling. It had a little bit of a spike on Thursday, and that fizzled. Realized vols remaining relatively high, but IV30s mean reverting. Friday close 124. And the baseline IV over the last year or so has been between like 160, so like an average of about 80, IV 30 at 80. So yeah, it looks like we're heading there more than we're heading back to like 200% IV. How far are your EPAM calls? I have shares and I have some calls in September, but I do have like a bunch of shorter dated calls for July. I have some 180s, 200s, and 210s. Talking to a buddy yesterday who was drinking the SS Kool-Aid, tried to tell me there's currently 2 billion shares of GME FTDs. Wrong. Last time I saw this much fear on the banks all ran like 5%. Yeah, there's some concerns right now. I mean, there's issues in the like gilt markets, there's issues in the oat markets, there's issues in the bond markets. B of E was unable to cut rates at this last meeting, and the little bump of inflation there reduced the chances of a cut at the next meeting, although they're still expected to cut like 2 to 3 more times this year. So that's going to just represent even more central bank divergence, and the EU's still expected to cut more as well, despite their inflation turning up post cut, right? And so that's also going to drive more interest in the dollar. The higher the dollar goes, the more pressure is put on, well, the more pressure is put on yields, but also remember that those hold to maturity losses are valued in dollars. Dollar goes up, those losses expand, right? And if you're a bank and you're sitting on a net negative balance sheet due to your hold to maturity securities, and they're dollar denominated, your negative asset value increases as the dollar goes up, right? So having this like effective squeeze on the dollar as other global currencies fall back and more central banks cut rates and the dollar gains more and more and more dominance is a really bad position to be in, right? But we can get into that stuff later. We're doing meme stocks right now. Upstart still coming down. Got a little bit of covering into the end of the day on Friday, after it tested at around $21. There should be some support around this range. As you can see, it's pretty obvious. We'll see how much of a support this is. We got a post OPEX expiration. Obviously, that could always lead to like a small amount of covering. So we may get a small relief rally here, but maybe nothing too too dramatic. Maybe like we test 23. As always, if Upstart breaks 25 for some reason, it's got the potential to run further. But I would say that it's probably not going to bounce very much, and it's going to continue to fail. It's still very liquid, compared to the historic levels, right? So plenty of liquidity to short with. No reason not to keep driving the price down, unless there's some reason to think that financial conditions are going to ease aggressively sometime soon, which could be the case. We may be getting some bullish bets on Upstart, due to, you know, yields dropping and that kind of risk off behavior we're seeing out of Europe creating demand in the UST market. I don't think we're gonna get that much easing, honestly. I think the softening that we've gotten since mid-April is temporary, and we're probably going to see the yield curve invert harder. Um, so yeah, I mean, I would say there's a little chance at a relief rally here. It's probably not worth playing. If you can find the top of it, it might be worth selling calls against. If you have CSPs out, which I know some of you do, might offer up an opportunity to exit them. Fubo, looks like it found another support at 110. Still getting plenty of buy pressure on the lows here, but getting more illiquid with the move up, which is honestly a bit odd. This could be that the MM is needing to buy, um, remember there's a lot of sold puts at a dollar, and there has been consistent demand for the underlying ever since we first tapped like 120. That seems like it's not relenting much. Obviously, there's a massive float to contend with here, but they do appear to be in demand still. Liquidity is not all that tight. I don't think this is going to lead to OPEC's run, but it could lead to a small one. At which point, I would still be probably interested in selling shorter term covered calls. Maybe something like prior to the earnings call that's coming up. Like you don't really want to sell covered calls into the earnings. If they do beat, this will be their sixth consecutive earnings beat over the last year and a half. That's should be a bigger deal than it's been, obviously. But hopefully we see continued margin expansion, continued growth in the subscriber base. Management's been doing a great job staying on track and staying above analyst estimates. So I think this is probably a decent buying opportunity if you're bullish on Fubo. Obviously anything near a dollar is very cheap, and much cheaper than even the CEO bought in at, like, he was buying in at $2 and $3. So decent opportunity to get the stock a lot cheaper, although post dilution. And I think the earnings will be coming up beginning of August. Beyond, still not back on reg show, but it is getting pretty fucking illiquid. This still has some more downside room. Um, possibly starting to find a support here, but I think it still has room down to about 1 second. Actually, you know what? It doesn't really have any downside room left. 627. Looks like, yeah. Looks like Friday's test there was at 627. I guess we could dip a little bit below, but it looks like it's coming up above spot. Yeah, I would actually be keeping an eye on whether this goes on reg show pretty soon. Sold calls are starting to pick up quite a bit. Neutrals aren't pulling back towards spot yet, but they are not that far from spot. Delta neutral at 911, gamma neutral at 1050, gamma max at 1350. And those have stayed pretty steady through most of this drop. Actually, delta neutral's been flat since May, since the peak in May. Interesting. Quite a lot of the short vol fell off. Gamma's turning up a bit, but a little bit of delta fell off the chain. So still not a lot of call side interest. Most of it seems to be short puts, but it does look like a lot of the short call positioning fell off on Friday. This might actually start moving up. It's risky with it not being on reg show, obviously, but I might start looking between here and maybe, like 15, 590, 580 for an entry. That actually kind of looks a little bit OPEXy. I don't know if you're looking for something that maybe does. We do have a higher low, which is kind of also kind of interesting. They did roll out beyond sausage, and in support of Hawk to November. You know, could be something people are getting bullish on sausage. Go EV. Starting to get another little bit of covering on Friday. This just got added to the Russell 2K. That'll be finalized this week. We might start seeing a lot more active fund flow here, which should help pick up volatility. If volatility picks up, calls are extraordinarily oversold to the upside. Puts have been being sold very aggressively. $1.50, $2. 10 to 20% yields on CSPs on this. And what that does is the more puts that are sold, the more the hedge drags kind of down towards spot, right? And that puts us in a position where it's very easy for that hedge to flip on any kind of upside move. This very well could be set up for an OPEX. A bunch of the short calls are falling off with Friday's expiration. There's already a tiny bit of covering going on into the end of the week. We got a big short that kind of stuffed it at the beginning of the end of last week actually, but not very much, right? And with the sold calls falling off at $2.50, $3, that's going to open up the range to the upside. It's not necessarily going to push the price of the stock up, but there will be less desire to sell those calls because they're not worth anything, right? And so for call sellers, I'm sure they'd much prefer that the price of the stock were a bit higher before they start shorting vol again. Jim Martin, welcome to Zillionaire, or Jim Martin's wife. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hit me up on the Discord. I'll get you added to the country club after the stream. I mean, I still really like GoEV CSPs. The yields on those are pretty solid. GME, I mean, it has support at 22 and 20. Yes, it could fail those levels, but I think puts still have a decent yield out at 20. If you have 2%, it's not that great. Yeah, GME you'd probably want to wait for CSPs. GoEV is still yielding quite a lot on CSPs though. I don't know how Beyond's doing. Beyond should be getting kind of capped out on these a little bit. The July 19 $6 calls are yielding 50 cents, 53 cents. So that's about 8.8% for 26 days, which isn't bad. So that might not be awful, although I wouldn't ever want to own fucking Beyond. Upstart's probably not worth it. BTU's kind of near a level where CSPs are pretty good usually. The yield on them is not that great, but they tend to be well defended. Just testing the trend on Friday, I think it bounced in after hours, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it did a little bit. But this is usually these trend tests are where I start selling like 30, 45-day CSPs on BTU. Which is, depending on what level you sell them at, is like 35 cents on 21 to, I guess you'd have to sell to August. Those don't really have any liquidity. I don't know, might get like a dollar on 21, which is about 5% yield. Not phenomenal. End phase might be getting near a bottom. that could be maybe something we're selling CSPs on. Yeah, I don't like a lot else. Most of the memes aren't usually, this is the usually the wrong part of the cycle for selling CSPs on them. Usually want to sell CSPs on them when shorting's peaking, right? And you're getting the most put demand, and that's driving the IV up on puts. Going into OPEX, usually that demand is starting to fall off, right? And so put pricing isn't as advantageous. Brinky, welcome to Zillionaire, man. Thank you so much. Think BNED will do anything soon or further down the road? I mean, I don't expect them to do a lot right away. I'm still bullish on the company itself, but I think I can get it at a discount. So I'm still waiting. Also, no options yet on the chain. The number of fails on BNET is disgusting, but we'll see how that shakes out. It's definitely still getting pretty actively shorted, and I would expect that shorts are going to need it under that offering price, right? Because I mean, the reason VNet squeezed, right, is because shorts got in too early, and they didn't expect the offering to oversubscribe, which it did, right? Which not only gave BNet more cash on hand, but also made them responsible for all of those shares, right? All of those oversubscribed shares they would be responsible for when closing their short positions, right? And so the shorts got squeezed out really hard, obviously. Um, Things got brought back down, but there's still a possibility that there's a lot of bags that they need to unload at a lower price. And so, they're probably going to need to try to get BNED sub $5 before they can cover any of that. All right. What time is it? It's like 1:03. So I think we can get through some of the. We should have some time to get through some of the Mag 7. Um, Apple took a little bit of a tumble at the end of this week and lost that really, really important support at 210. We are seeing Delta collapse pretty rapidly on Apple's chain. Gamma's falling off, but still positive. Charm's pretty neutral, and calls have been falling off, right? So we lost about, I think, between Wednesday or Tuesday and Friday, Apple dumped about $20 billion in Delta off of its chain. Um, Looks like implied volatility has gone down to about 20. Historic volatility is picking up. We're getting a bit of a broadening spread there. So there's a there's some demand for puts. Still very far from gamma neutral or delta neutral though. We got so a little bit of support at 200. Under 200, that kind of starts to bleed off. But I would say, yeah, it's still got a little bit of support at 205, 200, 195. Under 195, it's going to fail pretty hard. A lot of this drop is because EU regulations are probably going to prevent the rollout of Apple Intelligence on their iPhones over the next year. And that is a hindrance to the bull case, which is that everyone is going to want to upgrade their iPhone in order to make custom emojis with AI. It's a tough world for the Apple investor right now. I don't think I would short this, but it could be a good opportunity to sell calls above 210. The only problem with that being is that there's still somewhat of a call ramp in that direction, so I wouldn't sell a lot of theta on them. This drop could reverse on any news, but in the short term, 210 might present a bit of resistance as delta on the chain continues to collapse, provided everybody doesn't come in and treat this like the buying opportunity of the century. When what? Popcorn. All right, AMD. So AMD kind of had an interesting pop and then didn't really go anywhere. Now, partially that's because there's a lot of resistance at 160, 165. It did move back into like a positive charm environment, but then more delta fell off on Friday. So I'm not really sure that this upside move is going to be sustainable. And it's close enough to slipping like 157 again that it, and if it does, or I'm sorry, 163. Yeah, so actually it's, let's see, hold on. I think it's going to open tomorrow with negative charm, which is not a great place to be. Falls under VN at 157. Hmm. Okay, so this kind of looks like shit if it doesn't get above 160, 250. Um, that might be worth selling some calls or possibly shorting if it lost. I think if it lost 157, it's a pretty good short. I you could go short at 160, but it's risky. 157 is a better confirmation, but a loss of 157 is quite bearish. Could go as low as 150, 140, or 145, 140. Yeah, quite a lot of put interest to the downside on a failure here. That doesn't appear to be very short dated either, so a decent amount of delta picked up on the failure as well. Interesting. Although things would probably stabilize around 140 if it did fail. Should. Might not. Gamma is still a little bit positive, even though Delta's gone negative. Not enough though. Yeah, so I would say above 163 bullish, below 167 or 157 bearish. No, 160 slightly bearish. 157 very bearish. That's fair. Amazon actually did really well into the back half of last week. I don't know if that's got any juice left in it. Looks like it might. Let's see, about 6 billion, and Delta fell off. Charm stays positive into next week. Decent chunk of the outstanding call interest fell off. Really nothing bearish here. Nothing super bullish either. Let's see how positioning looks. Positioning for this still looks pretty strong to the upside going into this week for a test at 195 or maybe 200. Looks like a bunch of short puts at 85, 87, 50. So that spread could be a way to, follow broader positioning in the market. And then yeah, this might continue up a little bit more. I think my prior PT was like 190. I think it could hit like 195 potentially. There's definitely a pretty good call ramp, and Amazon is still on that ramp, only because it bounced again in after hours off of that low close. Yeah, so still decently positioned to move higher. I guess you'd confirm at 90 for a test at 195. You know, don't pretend you don't. Can you give me the skinny on Neo? Hold on. It's possibly accumulating in this range from like 440 to 360, although there's not enough tests in this range to be certain. China's economy is not seeing the level of success that anybody wants into the back half of this year, and the tariffs that are blocking sales of Chinese cars in the US currently, and then probably in the EU very soon, are going to present a big hurdle to finding a more sustainable market for those Chinese EV vehicles. This is a problem with Neo, BYD. What's the other one? I can never remember the name of it. But it's an issue. So unless we smooth over the geopolitical stuff sometime soon, it's probably not going to see a ton of price improvement for a while. I guess the other option would be China's economy starts to turn around a lot harder, but I mean, we just had their medium term rate decision. That didn't lead to anything. The yuan is still really unpinned from the dollar. Yeah, BYD's available in the UK, and they're available in Europe currently, but the legislation is expected to pass both in England and in the EU that effectively blocks the sale of mass manufactured Chinese electric vehicles in both the European Union and in England. And the US has already moved to block those sales. Very frequently, the biggest problem is that a lot of those cars aren't meeting like the safety standards set forth by the governing, like the road safety governing agencies in Europe, in the US, and in England. Yeah, they do have some. They do have some systemic issues. That's been continuing, and there's also still problems with the real estate industry. If you look at DPZ, it got a decent bounce after a drop last week. I may have bought a 540C. Well, just try to remind me as I wrap up the memes because I'm running out of time here. I got sidetracked once already. All right, so Google, strong performer last week. Um, does look like it has support here at 80 and has a continued ramp out to 190. Um, I do know it sold off a little bit into the end of the day Friday, but it did end up holding those levels. Um, this also saw a pretty big drop in Delta with the OPEX expiration, and it is getting kind of close to Gamma Max. Gamma Max is at about 187, so probably not a ton more upside room on this, but some upside room, at least supported up to the 185, 190 level. I would say that you don't necessarily have to play the long side, but if it were to test 85 or 90, that might be an opportunity to sell some calls against it as it kind of hits that level of being overbought. Um, there's might be there might be a safe play with selling puts under 180, but I would say that's a bit riskier with the end of the day sell off last week. Also, we don't know how post OPEX expiration is going to affect indexes just yet, and we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, there's possibly a continued long play here after its bounce on trend. We have a better trend here now. Yeah. Breakout at 182, I guess, would be the confirmation you'd be looking for there. 182 to 183.60. Um, that might be the best time to look into puts and or wait to sell calls on the upside test. Meta failed not only its long term trend, but also its extremely supportive 500 level. It hasn't fallen super far away from it yet, but this is a very important failure. There's still a ton of calls at 500, and there's still a tiny ramp after that up to like 510. Um, but where it is now, puts could drag it as low as 85 before it finds any support. A further failure after that could see a test of the call wall at 470. Um, those in the money calls at 470 are pretty far dated, so they should present a decent support if this does continue to break down. I do think that the MM is still fairly supportive here, but not nearly as much. Delta went negative. Gamma's falling off. There's only about 34 billion Delta left on the chain, and total Gamma's at 276 million. Charm was not quite negative into the back half of last week, but pretty close. And bot calls have been falling off. However, puts are being sold a little bit. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what strike. Maybe they're selling the 485, 495 puts. But if those squeeze out, that would be pretty bad. We'd be looking, at a downside move like 476, 467, 454, right? Just a technical breakdown here. Could see lows at those levels, but I would say right now 70 is supportive um, on the option side. And then yeah, any move back to like 498 could push it back on top of the call positioning. Microsoft was a powerhouse this week. I actually wanted to go long this last week, and I ended up avoiding it because kind of the weaker start um, after Monday's run, it just didn't do that well, and so I stayed away from it. I probably shouldn't have. I probably should have just gone long, but it is starting to run into resistance at the 450 level. However, there are calls all the way out to 460, and further dated even beyond that out to like 470. This has been a big big portion of the price improvement on Dow. Um, and I think Charm is relatively supportive on it as well. Gamma Max, we're probably pretty close to it. Yeah, Gamma Max is right there at about 460, so not not too much more room to the upside, but maybe like another $10. Delta managed to stay positive despite the OPEX expiration. Gamma also positive. However, short puts are pretty actively closing and have been falling off pretty steadily since about June 3rd. So, it is losing quite a lot of downside support as it moves up. But it's still bullishly positioned to the upside. So, two ways to approach this would be like maybe wait for a gamma max test at 458 or 460, and then sell calls out above gamma max, or you could try to play the $10 range between spot and 460, although I would wait for a confirmation of a break at 50 first, because 50 could just as easily act as resistance. Netflix, it did hit our 690 target in the pre-market session, and has tapped gamma max. A little bit of delta fell off here, but not a ton. And gamma max is now back above spot at about 702. A fairly significant amount of the bot call delta has fallen off of this, but I don't know if enough has fallen off yet to confirm a failure. It still has support at 680 and a little bit at 675, but the upside ramp is substantially weaker than it was. Although some of the interim strikes have gotten a bit stronger at like 687, 692, 695. And some of that bullish positioning did roll forward. So I would say it could still bounce between like 80 and 90 without any actual failure. And I would probably just stay away from it because of the volatility. That's a really risky situation to play Netflix in when it's kind of supportive but doesn't have any um, clear directional interest, right? Like 70, 80, and 90 gamma at all three strikes is relatively flat. Um, there is some bullishness in those offset strikes, but it's hard to tell how much that actually matters. And there's still a shitload of calls at 700, but that can also just be resistance, and those calls are probably sold. And lastly, we get through them all. Well, I might not get through Tesla. Nvidia, I don't have split adjusted data on this yet, I don't think. So you're going to have to live without the Greeks, but there are a fairly significant number of calls sold, especially at 35 and 40. They are starting to build at 30, and it's a distinct possibility that we'll retest that 30 level. Support is at 25. Failure of 25 looks like a pretty quick drop down to 21.20. Um, yeah, this could keep pulling back. I would say there's a good chance that we see a retest of 30, and then maybe from there we could see an additional failure. If this slipped 25 tomorrow, that would probably be pretty bearish into the middle of the week. That would probably see a retest at 20, maybe even a retest lower. Especially if sold calls at 25 start to pick up. So it doesn't look particularly bullish right now, and it looks like there was a lot of profit taking. Um, Especially on this week's expiration. Really only just a few calls at 130, and then put walls at 32 and 35, and more puts to the downside all the way out to like 120, 118. So, um, pretty big spike in put interest there. Yeah, and most of those came in on Friday too. 1 second, let me look at one other thing on this. Mm, yeah, so Friday saw about $65 billion worth of Delta fell off of the chain. We got a $500 million drop in positive gamma. Sold calls picked up quite a lot. So, yeah, the distinct possibility that Nvidia might have made its local peak on that failure at the 140 test. And I mean, frankly, the valuation, over $3 trillion is arguably unsustainable for them, but we'll see. Tesla's still just being choppy and annoying. I know it ended the week above gamma neutral, um, and it did get a little bit of support last week. There is still some call interest at 185. That kind of starts to drop off into the test of 200. It is still very well supported at 180. However, a failure of 180 dumps Tesla into a giant pile of puts all the way down to 150, maybe even 100. I mean, the put positioning on Tesla looks pretty fucking aggressive. Charm still slightly favors the upside, but uh, a loss of gamma neutral, which is currently at 179.88. So basically, just $3 from spot would be pretty bad. Delta neutral would be lost at 172. So that still doesn't look very promising. Charm's still negative across the entirety of the chain. Yeah, more Delta falling off into expiration. We are getting some sold puts on it, but calls are falling off. And it doesn't look like put sellers are very aggressive, or at least not very confident. So yeah, I mean, this doesn't look fantastic. Still pretty far out from their earnings. I think we've got 3 more weeks. Increased implied volatility going into the earnings could drive upside, so there isn't a very long window for this to fail, but I would still just continue to watch that 180 level. And if it fails 180, pretty good. Looks like a pretty good short opportunity. And that's it. I think that's it for the Mag 7. Somebody asked me about DPZ. I can take a look at it. Just got a 540C for next week. Going long on the double top. Let me see if I have data for this. I might not. Options chain here is usually not very liquid. Ugh. Let's see. Yeah, I will say that there is support. There's a decent amount of support here at 520. But it looks like it's not going back over 530 at least anytime soon. And the puts are kind of piling in all the way out to like 500. Yeah, Gamma Max moving further away from spot. Gamma neutral at a test of 505. Delta neutral at 487. Dealer delta turned negative, and most of the positive gamma this is a tiny bit of positive gamma still. Yeah, I would say from here it could retest 30, but it's unlikely to break 30. There's no upside call interest beyond that. And it looks like everyone's going short as fuck on it. I don't have any data on RDW, so I can really only do like technicals. It's a pretty big failure from the high. Finding support 550. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it should be a historically supportive level. Although I would say after the failure, this is a cup and handle, by the way. I would say after the failure, a retest in the $5 to like 460, 470 range should be expected before advancing higher. So I don't know if that's something that you're in for a long time. Generally what you would do on like a cup and handle play that you're long, say you're long during accumulation, is you would take profit at the first rejection, some, right, and then buy on the low test to add to their position for the next leg up. No problem, Batbones. Sorry, I wish it looked more bullish than that, but maybe it retests 30. Like you get that $30 retest, and that could be nice. Weird red brown raisin nut bran. That sounds foul. AVGO dumped super hard late Friday. Any chance for a bounce or just continue dumping? Yes, it did, and that was awesome. So AVGO's like I think gamma neutral on AVGO is down at around like 1360, which is really far from spot. Um, I'm pretty sure that Charm is now negative on it. a ton of delta has been falling off of the chain. Yeah, yeah. Charm's negative. Um, we might see some call buying though, because it has fallen so much from its high, right? One would expect to see some sort of support somewhere. Um, give me a second, and I can maybe tell you where that support exists. Although there is a distinct chance that just the entirety of the gap fills. Things still look pretty bearish here, all the way out to like 1600. 1600, there's a call wall. Some of the put interest starts to fall off. And those in the money calls from the initial move up kind of start to get exposed. However, those might just take profit too, right? Like what remains of the in the money calls, if it keeps dumping, there's a pretty good chance that they just keep taking profit, and it can continue down quite a lot further, like 1500, maybe even lower. Yeah, yeah. So I picked up a few longer dated puts on it on Friday. I'm probably going to add some of that positioning this week. I do want to see if it's if it's gonna find some support, because it's dumped so much, right? And really nothing on the situation there has changed. It's just the effect of it being so overbought so fast. I do know that their split is coming up though, so be very careful with how long you intend to stay in it, right? I mean, really, you've only got like 3 weeks, if that, till the split, and you don't want to be holding the old options chain when it splits. Yeah, we could talk about EPAM a little. I mean, uh, really nice bounce on Friday. This could be like a spring out of some like local accumulation. It hasn't moved up enough to confirm a reversal, right? But it is getting very close to that. Um, I mean, I still think it's massively undervalued. I think earnings are still projected to be pretty good and definitely above analyst expectations, right? Which are now lower at like 226 a share. In the prior quarter, they made 246 a share, so 275, 273. And this has just been a trend on EPAM for a couple of years now, but as you can see, they rarely miss earnings, right? Generally surprised to the upside. However, analysts have constantly guided down for them, and then that's just never actually been realized. They did guide down themselves a little bit on this last earnings, which is largely what led to this failure. But if they beat their guidance, right, that's going to be seen as very bullish, and that would probably facilitate a return to like 250, or maybe even higher. And so I think a lot of people in the market do expect them to do well on earnings. I do think they expect that they could be, and they're gonna want to like get into position before those earnings are announced, right? And so I'm thinking its price improvement is largely going to be before earnings. And we would probably confirm that upside breakout around 196, 197, as we start to fill that initial gap. So, but it looks good, strong bounce, lots of consistent buy pressure, and then buyers beget more buyers. So hopefully we see a continuation of it this week. I also think a lot of the more bearish positioning expired on Friday too, so that's probably helping a bit as well. All right, let me go grab the nerds.
capitalists cannot all be that retarded.
What's up, guys?
Well, they refused to put it in their butt like I did, and when I did put it in my butt, it all became very clear to me once I had put it in my butt. What's up, Gert?
What's up, man? I was just muting you, putting things in your butt, but now I've turned your volume back up.
Nice.
Yeah.
How
just so it's clear that everybody knows, when we get on here like a half an hour in advance just to make sure we're here and we just talk about stuff, I literally have to listen to Dork talk about putting things in his butt for 30 to 40 minutes every weekend. That's all he literally talks about.
Is that what he does the entire time? He doesn't just wait until I'm in the channel. He just starts talking
No,
about. Oh wow,
no, it is the entire time.
He's really committed to that bit, huh?
What bit?
Yes.
I mean, never mind. You're committed to your kink.
Oh yeah, it is a ride or die thing.
How's the weekend going, Jay Fresh? Are you surviving it?
Yeah, I'm still here. My two older kids are out playing with another neighborhood kid, so I'm happy.
That's good. And how hot is it there?
It's pretty hot. I mean, it's not like scorching hot yet. I don't know. I was out there earlier. It kind of felt like 90.
Oh, okay, that's about what
Yeah,
it is here.
90. It's exactly 90.
I think it's like 88.
So it's just kind of humid, but it's good day. Good to get in the pool.
Yeah,
I've been in the pool like every day this week. It's been great.
Nice. Why is consecutive beats on earnings by a company like Fubo something to be bullish about? Yet spam always beats and nobody seems to care. Hormel?
I don't know. How much do you think the spam market's going to grow in the next decade?
I don't know. China's Hawaii is kind of population capped because it's an island.
I mean, I don't actually.
He didn't hold on. He didn't mean spam. He meant EPAM. That changes everything.
Does it?
No,
or does it not?
It doesn't really.
It changes nothing. I think we should continue to talk about Hormel Foods.
I mean, in general, there's a million reasons why the market's pricing a stock the way it's pricing it. You got to dig in to figure out what the sentiment is.
Yeah, EPAM's everyone's favorite bearish bet on the outcome of the Russia-Ukraine war. And what's funny is that they've moved the majority of their operations out of Ukraine that were exposed to the conflict there, and they've already shut down all of their Russian operations, right? So they're actually no longer exposed to the thing that people are betting against them for, but for some reason it continues to be the go-to play for any kind of development in that situation, at least for tech services.
Fun fact, did you know that SPAM stands for spiced ham?
I didn't. It's I just won't eat it out of principle.
It's been so long since I tried it. I don't even remember what it tastes like.
It tastes like salt.
It's really good in a stir fry. If you just do a can of Spam and like about a half cup of rice and green onion and sesame seeds and that kind of shit, you get a pretty good stir fry out of it.
You getting some?
How much did you over leverage into your house?
Really hard.
What the fuck, dude? Like,
eating
Spam
and rice for dinner?
Yeah.
Not every day, okay? I make good food. All right? Just every once in a while, it's something that's quick and easy, and that's really, really quick and really easy.
That's what she said.
Spam musubi is just a slice of Spam on a piece of seaweed and rice. It's like sushi, but you can't afford fish.
All right, Bob, I'm gonna hold
on. Which is ironic
that
it comes from an island, like an island where they're surrounded by fish, and yet they still choose to put spam on their sushi.
Wait, they actually do that?
Yeah. Have you not heard of spam masubi?
No.
It's like a chunk, like a honkin' fucking chunk of spam on sushi rice with a piece of seaweed wrapped around it.
Ooh.
There's some teriyaki sauce. It tastes amazing, but it should just be actual sushi, right?
I kind of want to try that now.
You can.
Easy, Dirk shits on
All you need is
No,
rice and
I want to
seaweed.
prepare. I want to prepare to perfection so I get the real experience.
Okay,
Just make some sushi rice with a little bit of the rice wine vinegar and stuff.
yeah. You just make
Yeah.
make
I've made sushi before, but
yeah
I want.
make sushi rice. Slice off a chunk of spam, right? Fry it in a pan.
Right, but if I don't
Glaze
cut it
it.
right,
Nope.
I'm
No,
gonna
no, no,
get
no, 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 no. There's
neurotoxins.
no requirements. It's just a chunk, like a quarter inch thick slice
Yeah,
of spam.
yeah.
You
And
gotta
then
slice it to prevent the neurotoxins from getting into the dish, right?
what?
What
No,
fish?
that's not fugu, you ass. It's spam.
Yeah,
You just the
It's the same thing, right?
heavy metals are ubiquitous throughout the entire product. You can't avoid them.
I don't know. I feel like I need to have a professional do it first, and then I'll learn from them
Hold on.
over the course of 3 decades of apprenticeship.
I'm gonna look up Hawaiian food in DFW.
Did you just dox me, bro?
What? Oh, by placing you somewhere in the vicinity of one of the largest metro areas in the country. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, get fucked.
People are gonna find me now. They're gonna be searching the streets.
You've already told them all where you
Meowing.
live like 5,000 times. I think one time I actually had to delete a picture of your house off of the Discord that you shared that had your house number on it.
That sounds about right.
Okay, so there's an Aloha Hawaiian barbecue, 5610 Lemon Avenue.
Oh, that's right by my house.
Oh, okay, perfect. Actually, there's quite a lot of Hawaiian barbecue in your area. Most of them are chains, but there are a shitload of them. You have one that's got slightly higher ratings called Hawaiian Bros in Hearst. That's more on the Fort Worth side of things.
Gross.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been to Fort
wait,
Worth.
there's another Hawaiian Bros on the other side of Dallas Fort Worth, and that's in Rowlett. So you got one on either side of the city. Yeah. And there's one on the north side of the city also in Frisco.
Oh.
And there's stop doxing yourself. And they do have spam masubi, so you're set.
In Frisco, huh?
Yep. Frisco, Texas, 11560 Dallas Parkway. That's where JFresh is going to be all week, everybody. If the market doesn't crash and your puts don't print, you know where to find him.
I actually have a buddy in Frisco. I might drag him out there the next
Take him out for Hawaiian Bros Island Grill. $10 to $20 a person.
Yeah, spam and rice.
I'm telling you, dude, it's a great combo.
All right. The important thing is that we're not talking about the markets.
Yeah, we're talking about Hawaiian barbecue, which is arguably more important. I will say that while you're there, you should definitely get like a chicken thigh plate lunch because that shit's amazing.
All right.
And some short ribs.
Oh yeah, you got to go for the short ribs.
Thank goodness the market's boring. Friday was an exercise in frustration where, you know, bulls just simply couldn't get it up. You know, it's like what do you do when you let the bull loose in the pasture and he just doesn't fuck any of the cows?
Well, he's got nothing left. He already overfucked himself.
So he's just dead, writhing on the ground with a limp dick.
That's stuck in his butt. Yeah.
I didn't know that they. So it's like a drone bee. Like after they nut the queen, they just die.
Something like that. No, I mean, if you thought the markets were boring last week, wait until you see this week. Unfortunately.
Wait, did realized vol move up above 0 or something?
No, I'm not really seeing much. We can get into it later or now or whatever, but
Jesus Christ. I mean,
I have terrible news for everyone.
what is it?
I don't think Dork's Crash is going to happen.
I mean, was it ever going to?
Wait, now it's my crash. Now it's my crash, you asshole.
Yeah, you demanded that you receive credit for it, so here I am giving you credit for it.
You're only doing that now that you have some sort of data. If you had seen crashy data, you would have totally
fancy data.
You dickhead! If there was crashy data, you'd have been like, "This was my prediction all along." I know you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody else already knows that too.
You're such a professor.
Which is what makes this so hilarious.
We spent an entire week gaslighting everybody into believing it was JFresh's crash prediction. And Doric, all you have to do is just lean into that and blame him, and you get a free win. But instead, you're like, no, it's my crash.
You see, JFresh,
it's our nausea.
The only reason JFresh has PhD students is so his name can be put at the top of their papers.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, well, that's valid. That's why I have quants.
Not to get defensive on that point, because I don't feel like I need to, but professors put a lot of work into those papers.
Yeah.
Have you seen the
JFresh
average
molded those? Hold on. You molded those.
They're not just showing up and cranking stuff out. You gotta beat the stupid out of them real quick, and then you gotta show them how to do it, and then they can do it. So after like their third paper, then they can start cranking stuff out. But yeah, you gotta do it all over again every few years with new people. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I feel like if you shape their mind like Patrick Swayze and Ghost, that you deserve some of the credit.
Yeah. Well, a student that I had that was really good. When he first started, it was really frustrating for me. He just seems like spastic and not doing much thinking. And one day I was frustrated and walked in the lab and saw what he was doing, and it didn't make sense. And I just said, you're allowed to think. That's something that you're allowed to do. And from that day forward, it just completely changed, and he was so much better. And it was because I gave him permission to think. And I don't know why that was like the pivotal light bulb switch for him, but yeah, he figured it out.
You've never allowed me to think.
You're not ready.
So I'm looking at HV10 and HV30 over here on SPX, and they are at 5.5 and 7.6% respectively. Which is, I can't think of anything more boring. But IVs were rising until Friday. So we were getting some divergence. I do know that we got some supportive positioning that came in on Friday. I'm not sure it's going to be enough.
Well, here's the issue is people who are selling vol on the indexes are loading up the market makers long vol, and they have to hedge that off. So they need to find folks to unload that on, and they're just simply they're running out of people to buy it.
Yeah.
And it's becoming an issue. So now these MMs are likely, my thinking is they're just having to take on some amount of long Vega risk at these sold levels. and so Ivy can't really meaningfully drop a lot more because they're not unloading it. So the MM is taking on that risk. They're like, well, then I'm gonna try to capture it,
Yeah.
right? um, and so you have this market that's being pinned by the selling of all of this delta, but these market makers are now starting to get long ball, and they just so you can imagine for yourself what's eventually going to happen. But
Yeah, I mean we've dealt with periods of the market maker being almost too long volatility for extended periods of time, right? Um, I know that was a big element of like the Jan through March upside period was that we were constantly like moving between where the was like oversold on vol and them dumping their hedge and then us just moving right back up into it again. um every time vol spiked, they found a shitload more sellers, right? And so we just kept oscillating between like those 2 points. How would you say that you think this time is different?
it's not.
Yeah, okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
um
Do,
yeah.
do I sound super excited about this week?
No, you don't. I do think there are some differences. Financial conditions are substantially tighter than they were in the early part of the year, right? Like we had a lot of loosening back then. Dollar wasn't raging up. We have risk off in Europe, which is creating some uncertainty. I know Bank of England held their rate the same last week. And their inflation ticked up, but they're still expected to cut like two to three more times this year. And they're facing some banking issues. On the U.S. side, dollar is almost back at like 106, and even though yields are down, right, everyone's risking off into UST, and then that's pushing our yields down in the near term. But that upward pressure on dollar is still there, so yields can just rocket back the second people stop buying treasuries.
Yeah.
And then also all of that, we always focus on like the 10-year at 4.5% as that big risk level for the banks, but there's also a lot of risk in the all that dollar denominated debt becoming worth becoming negative substantially more because the rise in dollar value, right?
Yeah. You think Japan's going to have to do anything soon?
I'm
We're coming right
surprised
up
they
to
haven't
160.
already. Yeah, we're getting into some spicy like yen failure territory. I still think the yen could sustain like a move briefly to like 165 maybe, but it's really pushing it. And Bank of Japan already said at their next meeting they're slowing down their pace of bond buying, which is going to kick their yields a little higher, or at least it's going to force anybody deep in the carry trade to buy more JGBs, right, than they're currently buying to keep the rate at zero.
Yeah.
And that money has to come from somewhere because everything else in the system is just max leveraged, right?
Yep. Max leverage is a good way to put it.
Speaking of leverage, how's that looking?
I mean, it's looking pretty much the same, right? We're hovering. Actually, it's well, maybe this isn't surprising because most of the delta is in calls anyway right now. But the leverage on puts is still high. Pretty much nothing fell off from the put side because it was all. I mean, it's all sold and it's all continuously being rolled.
Yeah.
So there's not really a huge like OPEX event around those. Um, but I mean, a fair amount of call values fell off. I think it was contract value across the market, it was something, I don't have it pulled up right next to me. I'm running something else right now, but it was something like 200 to 250 billion in contract value, which translates to about 1.5 trillion in delta value. A lot of that obviously being the SPX.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that I showed something. It was like I think on Wednesday of last week of sort of the breakdown of the biggest options chains and their relative size.
Mm-hmm.
And Nvidia was close to 12 or so, and then there's a lot of 7 and others in there. Some of the semiconductor darlings, but that's dropped a fair amount. Nvidia is closer to 9% now, so a lot of delta, and a lot of contract value fell off the Nvidia chain, and that's something that's going to be interesting going forward. So much of the Nvidia chain was so deep in the money that it's going to be interesting when these contracts are closing throughout the back half of the year. What are those people going to be doing with that money? Are they going to try to do the same thing or or not, right? And I know some people think that a lot of that was sold, but I think from what I've seen, a lot of that was actually bought. And so some people are about to get a huge payday, and then they're something to the tune of I think just for Nvidia itself, it was like 24-ish billion in delta
Yeah.
that
Yeah. It's
or in
reporting that
contract
out every
value
day.
that's getting released. And so the question is what are those players going to do with that? Are they going to walk away and go somewhere else? Which to me, I think is extremely likely, just given the rapid rise. I mean, such a massive win, and how much more meat is really on that bone. I mean, I don't think anybody really thinks that right now there's a ton of meat on that bone. Um, so I could see some continued weakness on Nvidia, and if there is enough continued weakness on Nvidia and some of these other big names, like Apple at the end of the week, they had that news that they're not going to really. So right now, everyone's like, why is Apple just going to the moon? Well, everybody got it in their head like, oh, Apple released AI stuff, so everybody's going to upgrade their phones, which is ridiculous. But even people that are not sold on AI are kind of being sold on this idea that everybody that owns Apple is so stupid that they're just going to drool at AI and be like, oh, it's time to upgrade to get all these great features. In my opinion, I don't think that really holds a lot of merit, just because I don't think people really understand what AI means for them, right? So I think everybody on the planet pretty much believes that AI is revolutionary. It's the new internet. It's going to change the world. It's going to take all of our jobs. It's going to, bring in the new era of the future. But when you ask somebody, what's AI going to do for you? What can it do for you today? I don't think anybody really I don't think anybody could tell you, right? That nobody know. I mean, you've got, asking like Dan Ives, what does AI do today, or what can Apple do with AI? Like 6 months ago, he's saying, well, they can, basically put your face on pictures and things like that, right? And people, emoji, you can make new emojis, right? That's what they're doing
Yeah.
on Apple's phone. Um, Maybe Siri will be a little bit better, but nobody uses Siri, right? So I don't think that the average Apple consumer who's not an Apple bro anymore, it's just like people just go and they want a phone that they know that works and works fairly well. Um, I don't think they're gonna necessarily want to upgrade, right? And I feel like every year it's like there's less and less incentive. The cameras are already really good. How much better are they really getting? The screens
Yeah.
are fine. The battery life is probably still the number one reason that people upgrade, because they just don't want to deal with trying to replace batteries, right? So anyway, I think the Apple pump is completely unjustified, but here we are. But the reason that it dropped on Friday was because right before close, Apple announced that they weren't releasing AI tools in Europe because of fears over some of the regulations there, that they would be breaking that.
Yep.
Um, and then there's some issues in China, right, about releasing it. So if they're not releasing in those two markets, which are, China's their big growth market, or it's supposed to be their big growth market, that narrative kind of falls apart. I don't think it's dead, because I think people are still extremely stupid, and the AI religion is strong, and the AI dogma lives on. But that's another big one, that if that continues to suffer because of that blow, you combine that with people taking profits on Nvidia after a big OPEX, and some of these other names that have run a lot, Microsoft and others. If those start to flag, we could see some downside. But if they don't, if they catch a bid, we're going to just see, I think, a week of consolidation.
Yeah, I mean, as far as OPEXs go, I mean, we've had some big ones recently, some really big ones, right? Especially on the quad witchings, like,
This is
uh,
the biggest. This is the biggest drop in Delta ever
yeah,
on the
this
November.
is the
So
biggest
take
drop
that
in.
for what
It's not the biggest drop in charm, which I thought was kind of interesting, but the biggest drop in delta. Wasn't the highest charm either. I think it was just a little bit lower than what we had in what, March, right? Um, but Gamma did almost move negative on this, right? We're going into tomorrow with like 4 billion Gamma on SPX positive.
SPX or S. Uh,
Yeah, went from like 22 billion down to 4.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then also, little thing here. There's a pop in bot put delta, which I don't think I've seen since the bank failures.
Yeah, I haven't taken a look at that metric, so I'll have to pull that one up.
That was kind of interesting because I remember the first time we ever saw any like movement on that was like back in like August of 2022 when the market looked like it was going to turn around and then it just tanked.
Yeah.
And then we got like some weird little spikes in it, like back through the bank failure period, into the end of 2022 and through April, and then it just went flat, right? Like sold puts were just so excessive all the time that they were just maxed out. And so this is the first time I've ever like since like April of last year, I think I've seen any movement in that.
Yeah, the last time there was a little spike was actually a little teeny tiny spike was actually April of this year, like April 1st of this year, and that started like the correction that happened, and then it. So yeah, I mean, I've kind of looked at the time and sales, and the thing that worries me about downside is we're kind of in like a little positive gamma pocket. So
Yeah,
as we pushed up throughout this last couple weeks, um, a lot of sold puts have come in to sort of stabilize. So I think that's what they're looking to do, is to stabilize in this range. I'm assuming to allow positioning to catch up and then re-ratchet higher for another leg upwards. So that's what they want to do, is stabilize. And I think if they get the big meme seven to play ball, then they'll get that. Which is why I was kind of like, nah, I'm not super excited this week about big movement, because what they want is for the memes, even if it's just a breather, right? That they just kind of stick around and they get the stagnation they want. They want this thing, I think, to go sideways for a week. Um,
yeah.
and the only thing that's gonna, I think, push that. So if Nvidia drops, Apple drops,
I don't think that
Microsoft or
pocket, like,
Google.
I think that pocket's got a lot of gamma because it's really short dated, but I don't think it's got a lot of resilience.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think it could be squeezed, right? But what's going to squeeze it?
I mean, all we have to
That's
do
why
is lose 450, right? And then it's
But I
Now
don't think like
here's the other problem. What actual upside is there above, you know, Vega neutral? Right. So yeah, okay, we stabilize if they can stabilize this here between VN and GN, right? Essentially, um, yeah, they could get like position accumulation, but without a failure, VN's not going to go anywhere, right? They're going to have to keep selling puts at roughly this level, which is going to keep VN pinned. Like generally, the only way to get VN to move higher is you get some sort of corrective action. It doesn't have to be huge, right? Like you can get it to bump up like $50 by letting the market drop 100, right? And then you move back up 150. But I think something's gotta give here because there's just no more upside, especially if all of the positioning keeps concentrating here at spot, right?
yeah, I mean, I think it's I don't necessarily disagree with anything that you're saying. I just think that timeline wise, for just looking at the week ahead, I think there's a lot of incentive to kind of maintain positioning, right? Something has to sell, and I guess you've got to try to game out what the big players are going to do going into the end of the quarter. Are they going to sell to capture profits before the quarter, or do they want to be able to say, hey, look how great all of our Nvidia is and how much we own at the end?
I think Bulls just kind of like mad pushed for like the short leg of the JPM collar, and I think they missed it, right? Like I feel like that's what the target here was get above the collar, and then you have like a baseline for stability. But we kind of whiffed that pump pretty hard, right?
When does the collar expire?
The end of this month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they got time.
Yeah, fair. They do. But we're really far off, right?
What, like 1.5%? They can get that in a day, 2 days. They'll get it before open tomorrow. There's a non-zero chance they do that, right?
It's so crazy.
We're like 1.8% off. Maybe, but they've got to get through Gamma Max to get there. So good
Yeah,
luck with that.
yeah, but I Gamma Max, trending up. If they can just keep pushing it, they might have enough time to get there by Friday.
Let's talk a little bit about VIX because VIX currently disagrees with the bullish positioning. Now we already have like broadening like IV HV30, right? So like volatility risk premium is going at higher and higher prices versus realized vol. So there's someone's demanding vol, right? And maybe not everybody, but someone is.
Yeah, what is the term structure look like?
Yeah, fucked up.
Yeah,
um,
that's consistent with the market makers not having anywhere to dump all their long
yeah.
bits.
We've got
Long
like
ball.
VXV 2024 1840, and then like positive
Whoa!
convexity like just dumps for the back half of
What the
2024,
what is
and then picks
going
up
on
again
here?
into 2025. It looks like a fucking like it looks like a stock chart. I mean, yeah, it's super. The forward curve is
Holy
super messed
cow!
up. But this week we saw the most positive correlation between cash VIX and VIX futures that we've seen since November.
It's
And
pretty much just like fully decorrelated at this point, isn't it?
I mean, it's at
Is it like at
negative. It
0%?
moved to negative 10% this week.
Oh yeah, it's completely
Jesus,
decorrelated then at
Yeah,
that point, right? Because yeah, we're
that's
so
insane.
we were strongly negatively correlated for a bit there, which
for
was actually crazy.
you mean for fucking 8 months?
It
Or
was
are you
pretty
just
nuts.
talking
Yeah.
specifically when we were like above 50%
Yeah,
negatively
that's what I mean.
correlated?
Like
Yeah.
you would expect VIX futures and like cash VIX to have a strong positive correlation in most
Right.
any relation method, but yeah, this negative when it went below like negative 35-40%, I was like, dude, these things are actually like negatively correlated right now, and that's like gnarly. Decorrelated completely, even that is weird in itself, right?
Yeah.
So, the fact that we're just kind of watching a statistical anomaly play out is kind of fun.
It's kind of
Yeah, I mean, it
cool.
just
I
speaks to
mean,
how
when this goes
overcrowded
positive,
short
weird
culture
shit
is.
tends to happen, right? Like Volmageddon and God, I don't remember what it was back here.
I mean, like, there's a bunch of weird shit that, like, it always seems to correlate. Like, I'm sure we could pick up like world news and stuff like that, and tie it to these certain events. But yeah, there tends to
Well,
be at least a small spike in VIX when we return to positive.
Well, I
another
mean,
weird thing.
you're going from like extreme greed to fear, right? Really fast. I mean, well, relative to the timeline of the markets, right? It's really fast. Because we've gone from, negative what, negative 44% to negative 10% in 5 weeks.
Yeah, they're decoupling again, right? So
Yeah.
that's then, and and obviously it looks like we may see us. The thing is because this is correlation, it may just swing right back down, but I think that the tendency for the market is to be efficient, and this being strongly positively correlated is the efficient, outcome. And I think the market wants that naturally.
Is this the longest we've been negative? By a long shot. Yeah. Like all
Yep.
the way back to 2004. There's no other period in time where they've been this negatively correlated.
Yeah, and I think some of that just stems from the fact that I mean, I've been shit posting the CNN Fear and Greed Index for a while now because it's as we push multiple all-time highs, it's showing fear. Actually, is it still showing fear today? I haven't looked.
I don't
I'm
know.
sure.
Let's see. Yeah, we're still at fear, 41 out of 100. Um, and I think the reason for that is you're seeing there's a couple of effects, right? One, the greed part is the AI narrative, right? As retail gets fully in, I mean, more and more people are talking about relatives and significant others who are otherwise like completely insulated from the market talking about buying Nvidia, which usually signals that you're getting fairly close to the top, as Jensen Huang has now sold more Nvidia in the past week or two than he's ever sold. And insiders are dumping, and hedge funds are starting to, I think, unwind this trade. Which that's another thing interesting that I saw pop up. We had some of the largest call volumes, just contract dollars traded on call contracts of the for the whole year, right? And it rivaled last year's. I mean, all that kind of collapsed this year as everybody just went into selling selling really cheap contracts. But then all of a sudden, we had this huge burst of contract volume, mostly on the call side. That's just it was more like last year than this year for the first time. Um, and so I think that could be some signal that large positioning in dispersion and hedge funds are repositioning or getting out or moving to different strategies. And if that's true, then yeah, we could start to see some of this stuff fall apart. Because on the other side, the fear side is that the only thing people are greedy about is AI. Otherwise, there's just this malaise that's hovering over the entire market. People are scared about interest rates and where that's going to go. That's uncertain. Inflation, uncertain. Earnings for most people or for most companies are uncertain. And so the breadth is garbage, right? And that's where the fear is coming from. Is nobody wants to invest in anything else, and everybody's over leveraged, right, into equities and homes to begin with an uncertain forward path where nobody really knows what's going to happen, right? Because not even the Fed knows anymore, right? So I think that fear is permeating. So if you combine all that stuff, yeah, I mean we've got the perfect storm for um, stuff to start breaking, right? Because you have this widespread and uncertainty, but you have this really collapsed, vol indicator, in the VIX and in some of these term structure components. And I've been saying this for a long time, and everybody says you always say this, but eventually we're gonna get to that point where short vol leads to more vol, and that's where it all starts to come apart. We continue to get there. We're starting to see more and more anomalies show up because people are so short vol and greed is so concentrated in such a small portion of the market that yeah, I mean all it will take if Nvidia sold off 10% like it did or went up 10% one day, right? And then the whole entire rest of the market had to go down. All it would take is something weird like that, and it could just unwind.
I mean, this is probably kind of along those lines too, but if we look at everything since the April correction, right? Um, the 10-year has been outperforming the SPX most of this period, right? And then breadth has been largely divergent. I mean, it's had some
Yeah,
bounces, right? But it's
the S&P 493 is lower now than it was in April.
so we're getting this is bond values, not yields. Yeah, bond values, and this is breadth, right?
Yeah, but
That's
think about that.
I mean
Since April,
that's the
that's
component that's driving the fear index, right? Is this divergence? Because if bonds are outperforming indexes in the short term, that's going to lead to if that continues, it's going to lead to a risk off.
yeah, that's one of the components. Yeah, bonds outperforming stocks is one of the components, but breadth is a huge one. I mean, you think about it, the S&P 493. I'm not talking about like equal weighted S&P. I'm
I
just
know,
saying
I
take
know.
out
Yeah, it's
take
actually
out
down.
take out the mean seven. It's down. All of this return and the mean seven has just gone rocketed straight up, mostly on the back of Nvidia and Apple, but also Microsoft to some extent, and now Google, I guess, because I don't know,
Are
they had
they
some stupid AI
are they
announcement.
hoping for
I
this
can't. I don't know.
breath? It's the only thing that could really save them now, right? Is someone they're so over leveraged into short vol, someone has to come in and buy the breath, right? Like they need someone to come in and buy it. I think a lot of this pump is just like they can't do anything else but pump the Mag 7 at this point. They're so locked into that fucking dispersion trade that it's really all they can lever up. And then, the hope there though is that yeah, someone comes in and is like, "Oh, okay, we're going to, fuck, I don't want to miss the boat on, mid caps and micro caps coming back in on this next wave of the wealth bubble, right? um but that's not
I mean, yeah,
happening
like
this time.
the thesis too around like AI is supposed to improve productivity and thereby the economy. And if that's the thesis, then why are we not seeing the breadth from that play out? I mean, that's the part that like, and that's why I think why there's like broad-based hesitance is because no one's seeing the trickle down effect of these. After a year and a half, we still have not seen any sort of trickle down effects from this AI boom to smaller companies
Yeah, I mean,
besides AI
fucking
startups.
like breadth is just flat, right? Like this entire fucking upside move since, I mean, even since COVID, right? Like there's just no Where did I mean breadth improved briefly in the early part of 2021, right? And briefly in the early part of 23, and then briefly in the early part of this year, right?
Well, and a lot of that is because this narrative of market bull markets generally are led by leaders, and then breadth comes behind it.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes this like IWM play so sticky and so pervasive. Like people just won't give up on it because the market keeps going up. And so everybody keeps saying like, okay, well, it's got to follow. It's got to
No,
follow.
no,
And
sorry.
then it's like,
This is
oh,
breath.
they Fed might cut rates. So it's got to follow. Breadth has to follow. And then like all of these narratives just keep not playing out, but people just won't fucking let it
Why do
die.
they inverse when I zoom in more? That's annoying. Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah.
but
So
there's
we could have a
what the
few
fuck
more
are you gonna
cycles
buy
of
there? You're gonna buy contracting industrials, you're gonna buy failing manufacturing. You're not gonna go long chemicals. Anyone big isn't gonna get into like the places where there's moats like metallurgic coal, right? Like, it's fucking the most valuable company is like $3 billion. There's nothing to buy there, right? I mean, that's part of the problem when you have funds that big, is and this is like a problem Buffett faces a lot, right? Is that like there's just not a lot of shit that you can actionably buy into without
yeah. Well,
just
I mean,
driving the price so fucking high that your whole buy-in is washed in slippage, right?
I'm pretty convinced. I mean, it would take a lot to convince me otherwise that a lot of the small cap it's just pumping IWM. Everybody just like they follow the narrative. Oh, I'll just buy IWM options, right? And that's why I mean IWM is showing up as like one of the top 10, 20, options chains on the market, which is just stupid.
Not only that, no one's really long IWM, right? Like, I mean, total delta on it's garbage. Uh,
Yeah.
Gamma's negative.
Yeah, there's also a ton of speculation on TLT,
Yeah, yeah.
which I think says a lot about what people are feeling right now. But yeah, I mean, this IWM play just won't die.
No,
But it's
and
funny because people are trying to pump IWM, but nobody wants like the S&P 493, who are arguably much better. uh, if you want to bet on breadth, just start buying some of
I
those,
mean,
right?
nobody wants like the Nasdaq, like the Nasdaq 93 either, right? Or well, like
Yeah.
87. I mean, it's all of these are super concentrated. Like most of IWM has just been SMCI, right? And what happens? SMCI leaves IWM this week.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, yep.
Oh my god. Yeah, SMCI is also for some reason like one of the top 20 options chains. Like what are people doing?
I mean, buying straddles and watching one side print $80,
They're
right?
just a shittier version of Dell.
Yeah, yeah, they really are. And it was hysterical. Elon announced that they got all their like Dell servers in, and SMCI rocketed.
Well, they said both. That was the thing that was confusing. I actually had a couple folks DM me on Twitter and be like, "What's the deal with this?" Because let me pull it up. Let me pull one of these open. So yeah, so June 19th, breaking: super microcomputer Nvidia rise over 4% in overnight trading after Elon Musk's says they are working on AI supercomputer for XAI, and then later that day, Michael Dell is building an AI factory with Nvidia for Grok and Elon Musk.
Yeah, yeah. It was
Um,
like I saw the news reports mentioning SMCI, but like Elon tweeted like pictures of the servers, or the supercomputers coming in. He's like, look at our brand new Dell Nvidia supercomputers. And I was like, oh, that's awkward, right? So I think like the
Well, yeah,
SMCI
because it's,
aspect
I
was
mean,
just like a pump and dump on the
yeah,
news.
probably, perhaps, but I mean, it's just so dumb. It's a commodity, right? I mean, this shows it's a commodity. You just need somebody who can do this at scale, right? And it's Dell, right? Why would you go with anybody else,
So
right?
speaking
SNCI.
of commodities, maybe we should talk about how there's not enough energy to run all of these quote unquote AI factories.
Yeah, I asked Elon. I asked like I expected a response. I was just shit posting on Elon because Elon announced, they want by the end of the year to do 170 megawatts, and they in the next 18 months they want their quote unquote AI factory to be operating at 500 megawatts.
Mm-hmm.
That's like 1% of the Texas grid. That's insane. Like where's all this infrastructure? Like, is the infrastructure prepared for that? Like for you to just like flip on your fucking AI factory and sip 1% of all of the energy in Texas?
Honestly, this sounds really, really bullish on Halliburton.
I mean, all of this is going to be coming from natural gas, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
the
awesome.
infrastructure construction itself, though, it has to be, uh, provisioned by somebody,
Oh my
and
god,
I think it's going to be
Is
Halliburton.
Tesla gonna pay out money for their own power plant?
They're going to have to if they
Oh,
want
the
this kind of
stock
energy
price
at
is gonna
scale.
drop so fucking hard if Elon starts building power plants in Texas.
Oh yeah, dude.
Well, not only that, but it's also like 1%. I mean, if he's doing it open loop, it's like 1% of all the water use in Texas too.
Ooh, I kind of like Halliburton actually.
Hey,
But
fuck
yeah,
you.
I
I'm
mean
already
this.
long, Hal. Nice try. You're not tricking anybody on that one,
But my
Derek.
entry might be better than yours.
I doubt it.
The problem is that I mean the time frames are all screwed up, right? I mean, you have to put a there's a lot of risk to start building energy infrastructure
Ooh.
for something that might go poof in a year. And it's going to take probably, I'm not an expert in this stuff, but I imagine building, you know, megawatt, hundreds of megawatt and gigawatt turbine, natural gas turbine facilities takes much more than a year. So, I mean, just to make the turbines themselves is a Herculean effort. So I don't understand, by the time this energy is online, the bubble could already be popped. And then what are we going to do with all these energy facilities? So I just don't, it all seems like a recipe for disaster of just this massive misallocation of capital just propagating through for years, if not a decade. And like the fallout from that is just going to be really frustrating to watch.
Hmm.
Here's and I'm not gonna try to justify any of this crap. All I'm saying is that they're gonna need to have those provisioned by a company, and there's money to be made off of the idiocy that we are watching unfold. And
Yeah.
why not go for it? Just like 3M, right? Did the 3M play ever play
3E.
out?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't play it. I was just
3M
memeing.
3M had a little bump at one point, and then everyone got fucking bearish on materials again.
I mean,
Um,
if we talked about 3M at the beginning of the year, it looks like yeah, it's just chopping on
No,
a weekly.
I mean, it did good. I bought some at like 85. It did all right. I mean, decent, more than you'd expect for a year of regular returns, right?
Yeah.
And nothing to complain about. Like 15%. It's also their dividend's still pretty fat.
yeah, I mean, there's probably lots of opportunities to trade energy, sure, but in in terms of like long-term investments, I don't really know. But it's so hard to do a longer term estimate because of this huge short-term distortion from AI. I mean, you can't extrapolate it all, right? Because the volatility and uncertainty is so high around this that yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
I just think
I,
there's money to be
I'm
made.
I'm not bullish on energy long term, but yeah, I mean maybe there's everything's going fucking up, right? Like just
I'm
pick
kind of
something.
bullish on utilities. I don't know about like raw energy components, but
Yeah,
I'm
if you
bullish
find
on.
like you like value in utilities, yeah, certainly. I mean, they're not very well loved right now, and we're always going to use energy, right? It's just a matter of finding value.
Or check out the chat. I just posted in the chat something that makes me like Hal more.
What's that?
There's some calls further out.
Yeah, no, I mean some of those are mine. I'm not gonna lie to you, a bunch of those are mine. But um, I don't know. I'm long Hal at like I think it was like 27. I think my cost basis is like 20 23 something now. So I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot as far as my cost basis. I did take some profit on the last run. But I've been moving into leaps over the last month or so on it. Because I mean, from an infrastructure standpoint, one thesis or the other has to be correct, right? And if all of this does pan out, right, and we manage to somehow fund our way through the popping of a bubble, um, then like the infrastructure is gonna have to be built out, right? And all of that excess cash on hand is gonna go into capex. And
Yeah.
Hal's a huge beneficiary of that. But they're also we're still looking at possibly having an oil deficit into the end of the year, which is huge for Halliburton. If it even
Yeah, oil's
remotely
really
if
been going.
yeah, if it even remotely looks like we're gonna have an oil deficit in like quarter 3 or 4, Halliburton's gonna do so well.
Yeah, but why would we have an oil deficit? I mean, Biden's been refilling the SPR for the last year. You just dump that, right?
Mm. I mean, well, so far OPEC hasn't brought any production back online.
Sorry, that was sarcasm.
Oh,
The
okay.
SPR is still fucking empty.
Well, that's because yeah, but he sold it like 120, so it's fine.
Yeah, but he can't do it again.
Well, he just can't buy back in, or he's gonna rocket oil, vol, and inflation.
Right. But he also can't sell more if the price starts going up again,
I
which is
mean,
why
once
I
he
think he sold it last time to try to crush inflation was just dump a shitload of the SPR
yeah,
to drop the price of oil. But now he can't do that.
no, I mean it's been refilling a little bit, but not much.
No,
It's
no,
still at very low
it's not
levels.
true.
But we can also combat that on the other side by ramping up production, right? And I see that as one of the more realistic ways to combat inflation is just keep ramping up like the Permian Basin production. And that's why
Well, I mean, the
that's why
problem
I'm
is
long
that
Hal and Oxy and SLB now.
the the problem with ramping production is not everybody's production costs the same, right?
Nope,
And
nope,
so
it doesn't.
um, production is also a function of is a positively correlated function of price as well. The higher the price of oil, the more production you can profitably do. So it's a I kind of view it as production can slow down the increase in oil, but it can never necessarily reverse it unless you're one of the folks who are producing it for very cheap, like Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Well, they have problems with shutting down production, right? As they get too much supply or they have to shut down the wells entirely because I mean, really anytime they cut supply, they're basically just hoarding it. And there's only so much space to hoard all of those millions of barrels of oil a day.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. However, Russia does have some problems actually meeting their supply output, right? And they've been getting more and more frequent infrastructure attacks from Ukrainian drone strikes, which is fucking up their ability to refine their dog shit oil. And nobody else in the world is really equipped to refine their garbage oil. And so that's a problem.
Yeah.
But we don't. I mean, there's no way of telling how that's going to shake out in the long run. At least not now.
Yep. But and I think there's another component to this as well. I think that the oil futures market. I think they're starting to kind of catch wind of this whole rigmarole that keeps happening, right?
Yeah,
And
well,
I think that
oil
ultimately,
CTAs are getting pressured hard right now. Like they're still net short, but they're underwater.
yeah, and it's not, and I'm talking about like more along the lines of like prevailing sentiment, though. It's
Mm.
I think that in the medium term, this does mean oil demand is going to rise, and I think that that's becoming pretty clear.
I mean that's gonna happen seasonally anyway, right? We're getting into like peak summer months. Oil demand skyrockets right around now. Globally, right? Both in like distillates and shipping, and then like gasoline demand. Here's the weirdest thing about all of this, right? Is that crude prices have stayed fairly moderate, right? They're additive inflationary wise, but they haven't really spiked hard like to like 85 or 90 levels. But gasoline's being priced like crude is fucking $98 a barrel. And that
Yeah,
hasn't trimmed at all, and the seasonal adjustments I think massively underscored the price of gas in the last CPI report. But yeah, gas prices are still excessively high everywhere. I mean, I know Jay Fresh lives in Texas and he doesn't have to experience this, but and gas here is like 5.30 a gallon. I think gas in Jersey is like 4.80, and that's I
Good
mean,
lord.
Jersey doesn't, I think they don't have state taxes on gasoline, so generally their gas prices are really low.
Gas in Texas is like 285 right now at Costco.
Texas is actually bringing down the national average. That's how cheap it is there. But
Yeah, it's
gas
great.
gas in California is what? Someone here tell me it's got to be like $7 or $8, high
in where?
six to eight,
California?
huh?
California, it's like 580, I think, when I filled up the last time I filled up
For
in
regular
California.
6ish.
Yeah, for bottom of the barrel, yeah.
Five
Bottom
dollars for
shelf
diesel in Seattle suburbs. Get a hybrid nuke.
gas. Yeah, it's gas prices are ridiculous. And I mean, yeah, the state taxes really, especially in California, I think like what is it like 40% of the price of gas is just going to taxes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy because then you also look at the projects they're doing and they suck.
6ish,
With
five
that with
eighty, 44 cents at Orange County Costco. 4.40 at Orange County Costco. But
Jeez.
Costco's selling gasoline at like cost plus 3% to pad the cash back from their credit card.
Orange County. So, but wait, like Orange County, isn't that also like San Bernardino and stuff?
No, Orange County is in between San Diego and LA.
Uh,
Yeah,
Gross. Who would live there?
it's everyone rich
Why? That's a shitty
because
place to live.
that's where like Laguna Beach and Newport Beach are, and it's not shitty at all. It's it's super
It's
nice.
terrible.
No,
I hate that place. I hate it.
it's where Anaheim is.
Yeah, I hate it. Hate it. You can't get me to like it. All right, I've been there, and it's there's a lot of cool people and the food's pretty good, but like, dude, there's just such a large constituency of people who are just so fucking stuck up. Like, God,
Yeah,
get over
huge
it.
assholes. That's awesome.
Yeah, if I want to live around assholes, at least I'll go and live in like Napa County, so that way I can, live on a winery and not have to deal with them.
Mm.
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 This makes it. This
What
makes
you
it.
get?
Dork's ultimate dream is just to be a wine asshole.
Yeah, I mean, I might as well because then I don't have to live near anybody.
I
And
mean,
plus, I get to walk around vineyards like an ancient Greek.
just walking around fondling your grapes all day.
Dude, yeah, one hand in the pants, one hand on the vine.
What does that even mean?
It's all innuendo all the way down.
Oh, I see.
Napa's pretty terrible, but only because there's actually nothing there.
There's that one Italian restaurant that was featured on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Ugh, I don't even know what it is, but I'm sure it's bad. The only good food I've ever had in Napa was French Laundry.
There was I did a job at one of the hotels down there, and they had like this kitchen where you could get like a private cooking lesson. You and like 12 of your friends were basically just the chefs cook in front of you, right? And I was like, I forget what I was doing in there, but the head chef, she she made me some vegan ice cream that was hella good with like cashew and stuff.
Ew.
But it was really good. It was
Sounds
crazy
terrible.
good. Don't knock
Don't
it till
call
you
it
try
ice
it.
cream. It's not ice cream. There's
Yeah,
no
it's
cream.
not cream.
It's still cream. Still counts as cream.
No,
so
it's-
fuck off.
It's not
It was
even
delicious.
technically not even a cream.
Ice-
You just ate frozen
iced
nut
nut
butter.
butter.
Yeah, nut butter.
Suck my ass. It tasted really good.
I don't want to suck your ass when the nut butter comes out.
Yeah.
But then she showed me like pictures of the food there, and made me really want to try it. But honestly, yeah, I don't know. I want to live in Napa because I don't want neighbors. That's it. And I'd like to be kind of near the Bay Area, I guess.
You know that
That'd be kinda
there's
cool.
you know that there's land other places that doesn't cost $2 million an acre, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's also not in Napa.
Napa's just like shitty Italy.
Shittily?
Yeah, just move to Italy. Just get a fucking get a place in some field north of Rome.
Okay.
That'd be like a quarter the price. And even if you do
You
run
wanna
into
move there with
people
me?
there, you don't speak Italian, right? You just fucking ride your donkey to and from town once a month.
Do I get a cart with the donkey?
I mean, if you want to build one, good luck. There's like 10 trees. You're gonna have to go steal
Right.
someone's tree. Dave Grohl is trending on Twitter. Oh, yes. All right. So,
Wait, Dave Grohl and his innocence? I'm glad people are realizing that he is innocent.
What is going on with Dave Grohl?
Stop lying to people.
Did he touch someone's butt?
He did nothing wrong, okay? He was innocent.
Okay. That doesn't sound suspicious at all. I don't know what we're even talking about.
Well, Girk in his conspiracy theory-addled mind believes that Dave Grohl killed Kurt Cobain.
I don't believe he killed Kurt Cobain.
Oh, yeah.
I think he was complicit in Kurt Cobain's death. I'm just following the money, man. All right.
Whatever. I'm just not even going to get into it. I don't even want to justify it with trying to get into it.
Do you think Courtney Cox is complicit in his death?
Yes.
Then you should also believe that Dave Grohl is. Where would the Foo
What?
Fighters where would the Foo Fighters be if Kurt Cobain hadn't died? That's right.
There would still be
Nobody would
Nirvana,
know who the
and
fuck Dave Grohl was.
Who would fight all of the Foo? Someone has to fight the Foo.
Listen, I don't have a lot of
Had to be done.
conspiracy theories, but I'm still convinced Patton Oswalt killed his wife. And I think Dave Grohl had something to do with Kurt Cobain's death. Even
these are the stock tips people
even
tune in for.
incidentally.
You know, this is an investable topic though. So
Yeah.
well,
I'm getting hungry.
yeah, you want to do predictions?
Yeah, I think it's prediction
Yeah,
time.
I'm looking up
I win,
recipes right
by
now.
the way.
I'm hungry.
I was so close. I was
You
so
were.
close.
We were actually bips apart.
Bips Apart was the name of my new stock album.
I was a close third.
If the end of day like bull push hadn't been defeated, you would have beat me. You were just way the fuck off, Jay Fresh.
I was a close third. We'll call it a close
All
third.
right.
I'll agree with that.
All right. So I have to go first?
I think Dork.
Oh yeah,
the
yeah. Dork wants to go
right?
first. Let's see your crash prediction, Dork.
All right. So
Dork's crash.
Open the week at, hold on, let me pull up an SPX chart instead of futures so I can actually describe some levels. Okay, so open the week at 53.70.
53.70?
Yep.
All right.
And then we're going to close Monday at 54.15. That's we're going to close Monday. Okay. Tuesday gap down to 5,300. And then close the week at a really good start. Close the week at about 47.75.
Jesus Christ. I'm gonna make so much money this week. This is awesome. I can quit streaming. What was it? 47.75?
Yeah, that's where we're gonna close the week, and that's the kickoff to the crash. And then next week I could keep going. If I'm right this week, then I can keep going next week.
All right.
All it's gonna take is just a 2% sell off on the SPX intraday, and then it's all over. Everyone's gonna lose everything.
You're not entirely wrong about what that would do to Vega, but you've chosen a weird day for it, I feel like. Like why Tuesday? Why is Tuesday so bearish?
Well, because he still thinks that things are on T+2.
Oh, dork. Well, I mean, technically, settlement is still.
All right.
But option settlements tomorrow. Yeah, that's weird. Okay. JFresh? Are you just gonna inverse this?
No. So Monday we're gonna do a little bit of a 55 10.
By end of day Monday?
Yeah.
Okay. 55.10.
And then a Tuesday we're gonna do another 55.10.
Okay.
Wednesday we're gonna do
55.10.
a 54.90.
Ooh. Bearish.
And then Thursday we're gonna do a 55.20. And then Friday we're going to close at 5,500.
I hate this.
Don't you?
Yeah.
The $25 range.
Yeah. You ready?
You're actually awful, Jay Fresh.
I mean, this is kind of what I'm seeing. The thing to look for is, I mean, Bitcoin going down. So I was looking at, I think the thing that's gonna, there's actually a fair amount of good economic data that'll be fun, like house prices. There's a lot of bond selling next week. So things will pop up and down, but I think will be mostly just range bound. Final quarter over quarter PC and GDP and stuff on Thursday I think will be interesting. And then we get core PC on Friday, which I think will come in as expected, still within range and slightly lower, which will just fuel people's animal spirits a little bit more.
So I'm gonna go.
Oh, I love this.
Oh, I'm not watching. I'm going to mute myself and open your screen here.
Hold on.
Should I just take the screenshot of the quant dot plot like this? With just my line just falling off the screen.
Yes, you should.
Probably.
All right. That'll work.
Huh. You trying to price this right, me, Girk? How dare you?
No. There.
All right.
All right.
Take the screenshot. Here we go.
What about Bulgurk? Bulgurk's same like J Fresh.
And I'm not really that bullish. I mean, it's just gonna
I don't know.
We're just gonna flop our little slimy wet dick up against a massive call wall like we've been doing.
Honestly, I think Bulgurk would just be like this.
Yeah, consolidation.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
Yeah, Bulgurk would be flat this week. Bullish next, I think. Yeah, I like this. Although I feel like if I'm right about Tuesday, Dork might be more right than both of us. Like, because if we lose that like little pat, like that little gamma saddle to the downside, this thing's just gonna rocket down. I just think that they'll try to save it before the GDP data. That's the only reason I'm saying that we can move up again in the midweek.
Yeah,
because everyone's going to be like, oh, GDP is going to contract, and then it's going to come in at like 4.2.
Yeah, we need a narrative popper shifter. I think AI. We need the meme 7 to pop to push all that negative, the sold puts out. In which there's enough, I think, to stabilize because they didn't really fall off at all.
Yeah, so there's like a big fat call wall at 5,500, and then there's like a little bit of support at 5,450. And in between those is a big fat put wall at 5,475. So if we fall off that down, and I don't think we can get over the upside one. So the most likely scenario is we just end up like flat in between the two major strikes. So you trade flat between
Yeah.
5450 and 5500 all week, with all of our gap ups. Like all of our upside moves are going to have to be overnight.
Yeah. So, sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you get what Dork is proposing. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a big fat nothing burger.
I'm telling you guys,
I was
there's a
so excited
non-zero
all week too
probability that I'll be right.
because it all looked so ridiculous. Like everything just looked like it was like the wheels were coming off. But then I looked at the data this weekend once I processed it all, and it just looked like everything just kind of still sitting there. The big differentiator to me is the drop off in contract value on the meme 7. And if they can stabilize that, then this is going nowhere.
Well, here's my question though, and this is one of the reasons I tend to agree a little bit more with the bear thesis this week. Like the predictions are always bullshit, right? But what the fuck are they gonna like? They're gonna have to lever 3 month dispersion up, right? And these are not currently in agreement, which is frightening, right? Like we should expect like core 3 month to be falling alongside core 1 month, and if they're pulling out of their long term dispersion trade, that's going to be a lot of delta falling off.
Yeah, I mean the delta falling off the single names, I think was could be a fun indicator that things are starting to unwind on that end. There's somebody's pulling out of that,
Yeah,
and all it's going to take is that a few people are going to get out, and then the rest are going to get bagged. That's how it's
yeah.
going to have to work.
Well, there's definitely some people
Uh,
getting out. We'll see what happens.
yeah, so it could be fun. I'm just for me right now. I'm on like a kind of like I don't know. I just think it could all start collapsing, but it seems improbable. Just flat, just kind of seems like where the positioning wants it to go.
Yeah, I mean Dork's projection should always be like that's like a 1% probability at best, right? Even after OPEX. So
It is microscopic, but I have
yeah.
a put on Jaw JAAA that could 100x if I'm right.
That's fair.
Dude, if you're not in Hawk Tua coin by now, you're just gonna be poor for the rest of your fucking life.
I full ported it the
True.
second it was announced, and I sold everything immediately after it became worth something. I'm just kidding. I didn't buy any
Yeah,
of that garbage, but I should
yeah.
have.
I mean, if you're still sitting on all that worthless Geo Bowden, what are you even doing? Hawk Tua is the future.
Oh, this is the I lost like 35 IQ points just listening to you guys talk there.
No,
I'm significantly dumber after that.
you're welcome.
Thanks, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's way better. You're gonna be a lot happier now.
Yeah, I've heard that's the trick.
Yep.
Yeah, dumb people are happy. It's always the like highly intelligent people that end up like killing themselves and going crazy.
Yep.
It's true.
Some
But
of the
don't worry,
happiest
you
people.
don't have any.
I didn't believe
Dork, don't worry, you don't have
happiness
any risk of that happening
was
to you.
real until I met people that were unfathomably stupid.
Yeah, those people are like average.
Explains why I'm so depressed. Sorry,
Why?
Nuke.
It's also because you hang out with us. It's probably gotten worse, significantly worse since
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
hanging out with us.
Maybe,
Poor Nuke.
maybe, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why Dave Grohl had to kill Kurt Cobain. He was making him too depressed, and he just wanted to be happy.
He
Look,
does look happier.
He is. Have you heard their music? I mean, it's totally shifted.
Carl, your tea will never come back. Your hair falling out was the sign that your body is just given up on virility of any kind.
One day the VIX will hit 20 and Carl's tea will return.
Hopefully it's Tuesday.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Look, all I'm saying is it's a non-zero probability.
The probability is technically higher in September, but yeah, you're right. I actually feel like we could kind of slump here until the end of summer. Maybe pull back into like the 52, 5300 range. Just chill there.
Where the rest of the S&P is already.
Then rip hard into like the height of election season and then crash. Right before the actual election.
I just want the main reason I want the election to be over is so people stop fucking talking about the election effect.
There is no election effect.
Then we'll be right. Then they'll be talking about the next Santa rally, and I just can't. I can't get out of this hell that I found myself in. I got into the financial markets because I thought it was like where a bunch of smart people were and where all this cool stuff happened, and it's just a bunch of retards talking about their superstitions. Like, look at all the indicators.
But those are the people. Those are the people that you rob. Look at all these
calculations people. Look at all these calculations people are doing. All these really cool indicators and calculations of people that are analyzing the markets and distilling the mechanics down into these, great little, condensed indicators. And it's all just MACD and VWAP, and it's like, what?
Dude, but tell me more about Higher for Longer Island.
Oh my god. He set sail from Higher for Longer Island.
I know. A bit early.
Maybe. We'll see. Whatever. I get that. Like, you have to distill it down for dum-dums sometimes, and making a little graphic of boats and islands maybe can be helpful. That's fine. But I'm talking like Fibonacci's and stuff. I was like, oh, there's like, some natural waviness to it. And then you spend 2 seconds thinking about it. It's like, this is a chaotic system. Why would there be any, natural ratios involved in it?
Regards Kiki has been trying to trigger me with Elliott Wave again lately.
And by the way, who is Elliott Waves? And why do people keep talking about him?
It's bullshit, right? It's
who is he? I want to know who Elliott Waves is.
Elliott was a guy who tried to expand upon Fibonacci and Wyckoff by creating a system of analysis that could never be proven wrong because it covered every eventuality, right? And so all that could ever be wrong was your interpretation of it. So it's the world's most overfit, useless fucking indicator with zero statistical relevance that's always being corrected back in time to give the appearance of foresight when all the adjustments are made in hindsight.
And those are really long-winded way to say palm reading.
Yeah, okay, that works. And I'm sorry, it makes me very angry that it exists almost as much as Fibonacci. It also looks for naturally occurring
well, it's based on the golden ratio, right?
Yeah.
Ugh. Which does naturally come out of some biological systems, but
the guy who invented it died destitute and broke after his fucking amazing stock system never made him any fucking money.
But now, like, 20% of the people that look at markets think about them on a daily basis.
Oh, it's so gross. At least Wyckoff is, it's analyzing, the price effect of institutional movement, right? And the institutional movement has been, very, very well studied, and Wyckoff is still wildly interpreted, but it's based on like an actionable thing that happens, right? Yeah.
Well, like price levels and moving averages, those do tend to be sort of decent indicators of, how positioning moves, right? It's not perfect, but right? You can link it to things, right? And obviously people can trade that. That's fine. But that's not like what most of that's too boring, right? You can't just like sell that. You have to make up some weird, ridiculous thing, and there has to be 1,000 indicators. If there's 1,000 indicators, it probably indicates that none of them work.
I I really do wish that I could bring myself to do Elliott Wave. Because then anytime I'm wrong, instead of just getting a ton of shit, I could be like, no, 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 guys, we were just on the wrong wave. It's okay. It's gonna be this. It's gonna
It
be
was a
this.
wave.
It's gonna be
Wave
this next
three.
one.
We thought we were on wave two of the third major wave, but we're really on wave three on the fourth wave. If we had just seen that. Yeah,
All right.
I know.
Actually,
I
wait.
know.
Okay, so this, I think, here, this is why I'm bullish on oil too, Girk. If you just check the chat really quick.
Yeah.
I've got a
Oh, you
pretty
go
good under.
fuck yourself, you
You
son of a
actual.
bitch.
You know what? You know what? You can shove that up your ass. Why don't you do
Yeah.
that?
Did you put a fib spiral on there?
Yeah.
I
hate you so much right now.
It's not actually oriented to anything. I actually kind of love this. Can you post this on Twitter and see and like say something really bullish about oil and see how many likes you get?
Yeah, you should.
I don't do that. Oh God.
No,
like
don't do that. You'll lose what little credibility you have.
That's true.
Oh man. Yeah, I guess the only direction is down from here.
Yeah, then I got into macro stuff just because it's an interesting system also, and then I realized that all of economics and all of the economists that live today are nonsense peddlers.
Well, they've all fallen into the trap that physicists have fallen into, right? Where like theoretical physicists are just like, well, fucking Einstein already figured it out, right? So I'm just gonna sit here and collect my paycheck for teaching classes. And economists have all done that, except their Einstein is John Maynard Keynes, who was a fucking moron. Right? So it's like if theoretical physics had give me a moronic physicist, Doric.
Roger Penrose.
Who?
Roger Penrose.
Yeah, it's like if theoretical physicists had stopped at Penrose. They're like, that's it. We figured out everything.
Oh man, my fib analysis of oil just got so much better.
I hate you. All right, that's the end of the stream. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having us, bud.
I'll see you guys later.
Market crash on Tuesday.
We'll see what happens when futures opens.
Yeah, futures up.
If we open below 54.50, Jay Fresh will have thrown away his chance at a market crash prediction.
That's fine. This is Dork's crash that Dork has been calling for all week in chat every day.
Fuck you.
Remember that. Remember that when we don't get Dork's crash.
Yeah, if your puts don't print this week, talk to Dork.
Oh my god, dude! The market's gonna trade flat. It's gonna suck.
All right,
it's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah. I'll see
later,
you later.
Dude.
Later.
Yep. See ya.
All right. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you have any questions that I wasn't able to get to on the stream, hit me up on the Discord. I'll try to answer those for you. I should be around for most of the rest of the day. And everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you tomorrow. Later.